Hi, I'm Marco Rubio.
Saliendo del acto, casualmente vi unas palabras de Marco Rubio diciendo...
Secretario de Estado Marco Rubio.
Hoy Marco Rubio, ustedes saben.
Resulta que el señor de la guerra, Marco Rubio...
Por ahí sale el imbécil de Marco Rubio.
The fact that Maduro is upset about it tells you that drugs are coming out of Venezuela.
Marco Rubio no es un político más opinando sobre Venezuela. Para entender lo que dijo en la última entrevista en Fox News, hay que recordar algo fundamental. Rubio ha sido, por más de una década, uno de los actores centrales en la lucha internacional contra el chavismo y el madurismo. Por eso no sale de las bocas de los jerarcas del régimen de Caracas. Desde su época de legislador joven en Florida, Rubio identificó al proyecto de Chávez como una amenaza hemisférica. Pero su influencia se disparó cuando se convirtió en una figura clave del Comité de Inteligencia y en el Comité de Seguridad Nacional del Senado, donde tuvo acceso directo a información sensible sobre terrorismo, narcotráfico, redes financieras ilícitas y operaciones del Cartel de los Soles. Ese acceso y su lectura temprana del peligro le dieron algo que pocos en Washington tienen: un mapa de los intestinos del régimen venezolano.
Primero, este individuo que dice que yo soy loco es el mismo que hace un año yo creo que pronunció que Hugo Chávez se le había parecido como un pajarito y le había hablado después de la muerte de Hugo Chávez. Así, ¿quién es el que está loco aquí? Segundo, te diré que yo sé exactamente lo que está pasando en Venezuela y el mundo entero lo está viendo.
Por eso cuando Rubio habla, el chavismo escucha con miedo, porque saben que él no especula. Él describe lo que ya ha visto y lo que las agencias de seguridad le han puesto sobre la mesa durante años. En esta segunda administración Trump, Rubio ha sido una de las piezas más influyentes detrás de la política de presión máxima contra Maduro. Sanciones financieras, acciones contra PDVSA, cooperación con aliados regionales y la estrategia clara para aislar diplomáticamente al régimen. Y ahora, en medio del despliegue militar más grande en años en la región, con el largavista puesto en los búnkeres de Nicolás Maduro, Rubio vuelve a aparecer como un termómetro real de lo que podría venir. Lo que dijo en Fox News es una clara explicación de lo que la nueva doctrina Trump entiende sobre lo que pasa en Venezuela y las soluciones que están aplicando para devolver la estabilidad al hemisferio. En este video te mostraremos las 4 claves que reveló Marco Rubio sobre la visión que tiene la actual administración estadounidense para acabar de una vez por todas con la narcotiranía de Nicolás Maduro. Desde la capacidad de Donald Trump para negociar, pasando por la influencia iraní en Venezuela y el poco valor que tiene la palabra de un dictador como Maduro, Marco Rubio fue más claro que nunca, respondiendo incluso a los críticos de izquierda que defienden en secreto a Diosdado Cabello. Estas palabras de Rubio tienen más valor después de conocerse las propuestas imposibles que hizo Maduro a los Estados Unidos, rechazadas de plano por Donald Trump, quien volvió a asomar la idea de que están muy próximas a realizarse las temidas operaciones terrestres en Venezuela contra la narcocúpula del Cartel de los Soles enquistada en el narcoestado. Soy Jaime Garbet y esto es G News, el canal aliado de Casto o Cando News, con las historias que no debes olvidar.
You know, there seems to be some misunderstanding. I call it the Trump doctrine. I have my definition of it. Okay, I agree with the president. I don't want America involved in forever wars ever again. I agree with that part. But that does not mean isolationism. There seems to be a group of Americans that misinterpret what the president means. As examples, in his first term, he wiped out the ISIS caliphate. He took out Soleimani on that tarmac. He took out Baghdadi and associates. He dropped the mother of all bombs on Afghanistan. You know, I don't know how anybody could think the world's not a safer place by taking out Iran's nuclear sites. That's not isolationism. That is American force used for good. And 12 days later, Israel and Iran stopped fighting.
Well, the way I would describe it, it's not isolationism, it's also not adventurism, which is this argument that others have fallen into, that somehow there's a problem in the world, and the only solution to it is for the United States to send military assets to go solve it. What the president has done is he has, number one, he defines what's in the core national interest of the United States. There's a lot of terrible things happening in the world. Not all of them are at our core national interest. Number two, he defines what the outcome he wants. And number three, he takes actions that are very specific and limited to getting the outcome that's good for our country. So the case in point is Iran. Iran had these nuclear facilities. We know what they were. We've known what they were for a long time. And the president conducted a precise campaign. It wasn't a prolonged war. It was a 24-hour operation. B-2 bombers left the mainland of the United States, came over a defined target, dropped payload, 14 missiles or 14 rockets right into the holes of those facilities. The bunker busters turned around and went home. And that's it. It didn't involve 5 days of fighting. It didn't involve 15 days of fighting. It didn't involve ground troops or 6 months. He had a goal. The goal was we were going to destroy this nuclear facility. We were going to obliterate it. He went in, he did it, he got out, we were done, we achieved our objective. The objective was the destruction of the nuclear facility, which was achieved, without entangling America in something broader than that. That's a great example of the limited and strategic and focused use of American power to achieve something that's in our national interest.
Like America is showing its military presence. We've been taking out narco-terrorists, conflict about, and Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, addressed this earlier today, in terms of the chain of command and taking out the right decision to take out these boats that are bringing drugs into our country that are killing Americans. Maduro's been basically told by the president to get out. Are we on the verge of a possible conflict here?
No, so there are a couple things that I would say about it. The first is what the president has authorized is the counter-drug mission in the region. The fact that Maduro is upset about it tells you the drugs are coming out of Venezuela. If you look at these boats, the Maduro regime is not a legitimate government. What it is it's a transshipment organization. It allows cocaine and other drugs that are produced in Colombia to be trafficked through Venezuelan territory, and with the cooperation of elements of the regime are allowed to sail out on airplanes and leave Venezuela on airplanes and ships headed towards the United States. So they openly cooperate with the drug dealers. In addition to that, the Venezuelan regime is a source of instability in the entire region. Over 8 million Venezuelans have flooded into neighboring countries as a result of the regime's activities within their own country, including into the United States. They also happen to be the foothold of Iran. That's not spoken about enough. Iran, its IRGC, and even Hezbollah has a presence in South America, and one of their anchor presence, especially for the Iranians, is inside of Venezuela. So we just finished talking about Iran and the hostility it has towards the United States. Where they have planted their flag in our hemisphere is on Venezuelan territory with the full and open cooperation of that regime. So the fact that Maduro feels threatened by the presence of U.S. assets in the region and a counter-drug mission, it proves that he's into the drug business. I'm not just making this up. This was an indictment that came out of the Southern District of New York back in 2020, an indictment. It was undisputed until the president decided to do something about it. No one disputed that Maduro was in the drug trafficking business. No one. Yeah. Now that he's doing something about it, you have all these people on the left and others that are coming out saying, well, it's not true and it hasn't been proven. We have an indictment by a grand jury, not by politicians, by a grand jury in the Southern District of New York that indicted him and a bunch of people in the regime. So that's what's important to point out here. Now, all that being said, I also, it's interesting, if an aircraft carrier of the United States was deployed off the coast of Japan, or was the coast on the Pacific somewhere, or was deployed in the Mediterranean, or in somewhere off the coast of Europe, everybody would be happy because it would show America's commitment to our security partnerships that we have around the world. But somehow if an aircraft carrier and our naval assets are deployed in our own hemisphere, that's problematic. I would say that if you're focused on America and America first, you start with your own hemisphere where we live. What happens here, I'm not saying things that are happening halfway around the world are not important. I'm saying what happens in our hemisphere impacts us faster and more deeply than something that's happening halfway around the world. Well, look, at the end of the day, we're Maduro, and his problem basically is that this is a guy, if you wanted to make a deal with him, I don't know how you do. He's broken every deal he's ever made. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't try. If you can work out a way that, you can bring stability to the hemisphere, you can make Venezuela help be a country that isn't the base for Iranian influence against and activities against the United States, You could have a Venezuela that didn't traffic in drugs and didn't send people to our country like Tren de Aragua gang members and the like. That would be great. The problem is Maduro has made 5 deals with different parties over the last 10 years and has broken every single one of them. The Biden administration made a deal with Maduro. No one talks about this. He made a deal with Maduro. Here was the deal. Maduro asked that his nephews, convicted drug traffickers, be released from U.S. prisons. He asked that his chief money launderer, his money man, his bag man, be released from U.S. custody before he stood trial. In exchange, he promised to hold free and fair elections. He got the nephews back, the drug dealers. He got the bag man back, and he never did the free and fair elections.
He stole the elections.
They stole the elections. They suckered Joe Biden. They're not going to sucker Donald Trump. And so that's really the fundamental problem we have here. I think the president is a unique figure in modern American history. He's prepared to sit down and meet and talk to anybody. Okay? He just met the other day with the president of Syria, who has, an interesting past, to say the least, in terms of his past activities. He's willing to meet with Putin. He's willing to meet with Xi. He's willing to meet with Kim Jong-un like he did in the first term. He's willing to meet with anybody. But at the end of the day, there has to be somebody that you can actually make a deal with. We've made a deal with the Chinese, but Maduro's never kept a deal. That doesn't mean the president won't try. It doesn't mean we shouldn't try.